Since I ended up in a wheelchair because of an accident 3 years ago, my husband and mother-in-law have become much harsher towards me. One night, my husband suddenly said, "Sorry, but could you please leave this house for a second?" I couldn't understand what he meant. What? What do you mean? The divorce? Do you mean you want a divorce? Yeah, that's it. I've been thinking about it for a long time now. You can't earn any money. I don't need you. His words hit me hard. I understand. Thanks for everything, and thanks for leaving me with nothing. I left. It will take them some time to understand the meaning of my words. My name is Kylie Jenner. I graduated from university and have been working at my current company for 8 years. Well, I'll be heading out. Thanks for your hard work. Thanks for your hard work too. I closed my laptop and got up. It was now 5 hours past my normal work time. A meeting in the afternoon ran late, and as I was preparing for a conference and answering emails after hours, more time passed than I expected. I left the office, got in the elevator, and went down to the first floor. It was dark outside as I checked the train schedule on my phone and walked to the nearest station. On my way, I saw 2 colleagues from the same department as my husband, James, heading in the same direction. I wondered if James was already home. We had stopped talking about work at home recently because it made James cranky, so I had no idea if he was busy at work now. The train swayed as I made my way home. I stared out the window, lost in thought. When I was dating James, we used to finish work at the same time so we could go home together. But for the past year or two, our schedules have been completely different. I noticed a young couple standing by the door, probably college students, talking happily about a movie they saw recently. Their happy scene reminded me of my past. I closed my eyes tightly to hold back my emotions. "I'm home," I called out after opening the front door. While taking off my shoes, I saw that everyone else was already home. I heard slippers approaching from the living room. "Welcome home, Kylie. You were late today," my mother-in-law said. "I'm home," I replied. "I'll make dinner right away." "Oh, you don't need to hurry. You must be tired from working overtime." "Not really. The meeting in the afternoon ran late, which is why I'm late. But it should settle down soon," I answered cheerfully. I followed my mother-in-law, Lauren, to the living room. After marrying James, it was just the 2 of us, but when his father fell ill and was hospitalized, we moved into his parents' home last year and have been living as a family of 4. "Welcome back, Kylie. You've had a tough day, haven't you?" My father-in-law greeted me warmly from the living room sofa. "I'm back," I replied. He had a sudden brain hemorrhage last year and needed emergency surgery. Though his condition was critical for a while, he's now fine after his rehabilitation. He's always been friendly and easy to talk to. Before retiring, he was the head of the finance department and often gave me tips on managing the household budget. After we finished preparing dinner, we gathered around the table as a family. Lauren mentioned Joyce came over for lunch the other day, and I was surprised at how much her daughter Julie has grown. "They do say kids grow up faster when they're not yours," I responded. "Joyce is as beautiful as ever, and having a child really brings out her feminine side as a mother," she continued. "I guess so," I replied. Joyce is Lauren's niece and James's cousin. Lauren often seems disappointed that James and I don't have children. She's not too happy about me continuing to work after our marriage and hints that she'd like us to have a child whenever we meet. I've always had a hard time dealing with Lauren, especially since we started living together. She often brings up the topic of having children, especially when I come home late from work. "You could have had a child if it had been a little earlier, Kylie. I suppose it can't be helped because you're busy with work," she would say. I would nod along, glancing at James, who quietly ate his meal without looking at me. James and I were colleagues at the same company and got married in our 3rd year of dating. Though we were told it would be best if I became a housewife if we had a child, we continued working together for 8 years without having a child. We both wanted a child and tried everything from herbal medicine to medical tests, but nothing worked. Though it was lonely, we decided to focus on our work and live as a couple. However, I began to feel an invisible wall between us. Even though we married out of love and promised to make each other happy, our relationship grew cold. I think it started when James began to struggle with his work. He didn't tell me, but I heard from a senior colleague that James was stressed because he couldn't achieve the same results as his peers. James is naturally gentle, not good under pressure, and has a habit of pushing himself too hard. I knew he was feeling anxious and frustrated, but whenever I tried to talk to him, he would refuse to share his worries, insisting he was fine. Since he kept his worries from me, I felt helpless. Even so, on our days off, we travel together or spend a relaxing day at home, treasuring our time together. When I felt emotionally drained from our failed attempts to conceive, James was always there, silently supporting me. That's why, even if I couldn't solve James's problems directly, I tried to be by his side, creating moments of comfort for him. The turning point was when I got a promotion at work. I was recognized for my achievements and was one of the fastest among my peers to get promoted. "That's amazing, congratulations, Kylie," he said. I can't forget the look on James's face when he congratulated me. I was so emotional that all I could manage was a simple thank you. As my work got busier, the distance between James and me grew. We spent less time together, our conversations dwindled, and when my income surpassed James's, we barely made eye contact. I would watch James finish his meal silently and leave the table without a word. I can't help but wonder if things would have been different if I had tried harder to support him instead of being afraid of rejection. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was the bright white light of a fluorescent bulb. After blinking a few times, I realized I was lying in a hospital bed. I looked down and saw an IV in my arm, and both of my legs were wrapped in layers of bandages and casts. When I tried to move, a pain like I'd never felt before shot through my body. Tears welled up in my eyes from the sheer pain. My body felt as heavy as lead, and it seemed impossible to move. What on earth had happened? I tried to trace back my memories. I remembered going to work at the usual time, finishing a meeting and report, and leaving work on time for the first time in a while. I was headed toward the station when it hit me an accident. The station was busier than usual because of rush hour. I remembered hearing the screeching sound of sudden brakes from behind. When I turned around, I felt a violent shock. I realized I had been hit by a car, and fear rushed in alongside the pain spreading through my body. What condition is my body in now? I wondered. The sound of footsteps approached, and suddenly the curtain around my bed was opened. "Oh, Mrs. Jenner, you're awake. But you should not get up yet," a young female nurse said quickly. "I understand you're confused, but your doctor will explain everything to you shortly. Please stay calm for now." "Oh, okay," I replied. The nurse left in a hurry. A few minutes later, the doctor arrived and explained the circumstances of the accident and the surgical procedures. Apparently, a truck driven by a drowsy driver had crashed onto the sidewalk, and I was unfortunately there and got knocked over from behind. I had been urgently transported to this hospital right after the accident, and it had been about half a day since the surgery. "Excuse me, but have you contacted my family already?" I asked. "Yes, we have contacted your husband and his parents to inform them about the accident and that the surgery was completed successfully. However, they seem to be out somewhere and can't come right away," the nurse replied. "I see, thank you," I said. James was away on a business trip, and his parents had been on an overseas vacation since last week. From the doctor's tone, I could imagine their reaction when they received the news. Even considering they were out, their response didn't seem like what you'd expect when being told a loved one had been in an accident. It was as if they didn't see the urgency to come immediately. I laughed bitterly, imagining James's reaction when he found out about the accident. It was hard to picture him being genuinely worried about me. The doctor explained that although there were no life-threatening injuries, the damage to my legs was severe. They said the chances of me walking again were not promising. It felt surreal, like the explanation was about someone else, not my own body. James visited the hospital 3 days after the accident. It was surprising to see his pained expression when he saw me lying in the hospital bed, injured all over. "Sorry I'm late," he said. "It's fine. Don't worry about it." "I'm sorry for interrupting your business trip," I replied. It had been a while since we last talked, and the atmosphere was awkward. Our conversation stalled, and James excused himself to talk to the doctor, leaving the room. I couldn't call out to him and just watched him leave. It has been 3.5 years since the accident. The injuries left me with disabilities in my legs, and I've been forced to live in a wheelchair. The accident happened when I was leaving work, so I stayed with the company for a while, but it became difficult to work as I used to, and I resigned about 7 months ago. Since resigning, I've been spending my time at home, but a few things have been bothering me. One is that Lauren's attitude towards me has become noticeably harsher than before. "Kylie, do you have a moment?" Lauren asked. "Yes, of course," I replied. "I'm about to head out, but could you fold the laundry for me? It's just folding, so you can do it even if you can't move your legs, right?" Lauren's voice had that familiar edge of sarcasm. "Yes, I'll get it done. Please be careful on your way," I replied, forcing a smile. "Well then, please get it done," she said before leaving. Since I started spending my days at home, Lauren's snide comments have increased. She seems unhappy with me being home all day and not working. Every time she asks me to do something, it comes with a side of sarcasm. I sighed as I folded the laundry, thinking about James's job. According to a former colleague, James is struggling more than ever at work. He's being outperformed by juniors and subordinates, and it seems he's treated like an annoyance by his colleagues. He used to keep to himself after coming home, but lately he's been taking out his frustrations on me more often. "Must be nice, Kylie. You don't have to worry about workplace relationships anymore, and you can eat without having to work. Mom said you've been lazing around all day doing nothing. I wish I could have that lifestyle just once," he would say. The kind James I once knew was gone, replaced by someone who constantly threw sarcastic remarks at me. All I felt was sadness for the changed man he had become. One night, James's words caught me off guard. "I hate to ask this, but could you please leave this house?" "What? What do you mean?" I stammered. "I mean just what I said. My mom and I have talked it over and decided," James said, avoiding eye contact. I turned to Lauren, who was sitting next to him. "Kylie, ever since you quit your job, you haven't contributed to the living expenses or helped around the house. You've just been staying at home all the time. To be blunt, it's a nuisance if you stay here any longer," Lauren said with a triumphant look in her eyes. I don't understand," I said, feeling my heart sink. "Don't you think it's imputed to be leeching off others without making any contribution to their household?" Lauren continued. James remained silent, looking down. "James has a tough job too. Just because you're married, he doesn't have an obligation to support you anymore," Lauren added. I looked at James, hoping for some sign of support, but he kept his eyes down. "So, you're asking me to leave? You want a divorce?" "Yeah, that's it. I've been thinking about it for a long time," James finally said. "After being together for so long, you have no feelings left for me?" I asked, tears welling up in my eyes. "Why would there be?" "Of course not," James responded, his voice breaking as if a dam had burst. "Do you have any idea how miserable I am?" I was left speechless, the weight of his words crushing any remaining hope I had. "I feel it every time I see your face. You must have been looking down on me, right? Thinking you were better than me every single day," James said, his voice filled with bitterness. It felt like the threads we had spun together since we met were fraying one by one. "I tolerated you because you were contributing to the household expenses, but things have changed. Now, you're just a good-for-nothing who neither works nor has money," James spat out, clenching his fists. "I don't need you now that you can't earn money." The last thread snapped with a painful finality. "I understand," I said, finally meeting his eyes. "But I have a condition. All the procedures for the divorce agreement will be carried out through a lawyer. If you agree to that, I will pack up my things and leave within the week." "Sure, that's fine," James muttered, nodding silently. "Well then, that's how it is," Lauren said, looking satisfied. "Thank you for everything until now, and at last, thank you for leaving me with nothing," I said, turning to leave. A few days passed since I left the house. One day, I saw an incoming call from James on my phone. After staring at the screen for a few seconds, I picked up. "Yes, Kylie, I'm sorry. Could you please come back?" James's voice sounded desperate. "What's this all about all of a sudden?" I asked, confused. "I heard from my dad. Even after you quit your job, you've been covering our living expenses. You've been investing since you were working, haven't you? And now you're able to cover living expenses with dividend income." "Yes, that's right. So what?" "I left the household budget to you and my dad, so I didn't know anything. I thought we were living off my income, but we were mostly living off yours, weren't we? I really regret saying such terrible things. I'm sorry." After getting married and merging our finances, I started investing using my own income. Initially, I was encouraged to do so by my father-in-law, and I only consulted him about financial management and investments. "So, what am I supposed to do if I come back?" I asked. "Well, my dad says with my income alone, it's impossible to maintain the same standard of living as before. Besides, I'm not confident I can do this without you," James admitted, his voice breaking. I paused, taking in his words. The man who had once pushed me away was now asking me to come back, recognizing my contributions and regretting his harsh words. I took a deep breath, ready to respond. "I can continue my current job indefinitely, so you're saying you want me to come back so we can live well?" "You've really got some nerve," I said, hearing James catching his breath over the phone. "The reason I never said anything before is because, even though my feelings have changed, I believed that somewhere you still cared about me. But you're not the James I once loved anymore." "That's not true. I still love you, Kylie," James insisted. "There's no need for you to say anything more. All my feelings for you vanished the last time we talked. Sorry, but whatever happens to you guys from here on out, I just don't care. Thank you for leaving me with no trust, no memories, nothing at all," I replied coldly. "Wait, Kylie, please forgive me," James pleaded. "I'll handle all the divorce arrangements and proceedings through my lawyer." "Don't ever contact me again," I said, hanging up the phone and blocking any further communication. The divorce process went quickly, and I completely severed ties with James. The only person I still communicate with is my father-in-law. "Have you had any trouble living alone since you split up with James?" he asked. "No, not particularly so far." "That's good. I'm sorry for the trouble we caused you, Kylie. When I heard about what happened from James and my wife, I was so furious I couldn't help shouting. I shouldn't have turned a blind eye to the terrible attitude my wife and son showed you for so long. I'm sorry I couldn't do anything." "It's okay, sir. Please don't worry about it. In fact, I'm the one who caused trouble," I reassured him. After I left, troubles at the house seemed never-ending. Even after losing my income, James and Lauren continued to live lavishly without reducing their lifestyle, eventually resorting to pawning their belongings and accumulating debt. Fed up with their irresponsible behavior, my father-in-law recently divorced his wife. I see this as a good opportunity to reassess my life. I can live just fine with my current lifestyle, and I also want to take on new challenges," I said cheerfully. With that, I left, feeling a sense of freedom and optimism for the future.